Coach Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I want to welcome you to the Engaged Employee Podcast. Our mission is to emphasize the relationship between the employee and the workplace with the goal of enhancing engagement levels to create a more productive and satisfying work environment. While many organizations strive to create a more engaging atmosphere, they often miss the mark by forcing connection with big team building events like axe throwing or escape rooms. Those activities only leave employees with a short-lived sense of belonging. Organizations may also try smaller and more suffocating events like happy hours or group birthday celebrations that their employees feel obligated to attend. As a social connections and business culture coach, I've found that to create a stable, engaged, and productive workforce, there needs to be a shift in focus from mandatory fun and manufactured connection towards building trust and authentic conversation. Join me and a guest as we dive into social wellness strategies for the individual employee, techniques for developing interpersonal relationships with coworkers, and even some approaches for leaders to enrich the overall organizational culture. The Engaged Employee Podcast starts now. Welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast. My name is Coach Lee, and I'm so glad that you're here today. My guest today is David D. Doerrier. David D. Doerrier is the expert who unlocks the secret to captivating any audience, no matter the stage. With over 28 years in the United States Air Force and a diverse career spanning from radio broadcasting to corporate training, David understands the struggle of conquering the stage. His approach is simple yet powerful: clarity, brevity, passion. Through personalized coaching, group workshops, and executive training, David empowers professionals like executives, managers, and technical experts to craft presentations that inform and inspire. Our conversation today will be focused on interpersonal relationships between coworkers and colleagues. David, welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast.
Well, thanks so much, Coach Lee, for inviting me to be a part of your podcast today. This is quite exciting.
Yes, I'm very excited. And people, you don't know this, and maybe David doesn't know this, but the D is for dynamic. The David D is for dynamic. Bam.
Right. Or dashing.
Or dashing. Any other fantastic words? That's the experience that I've had with him so far, and I'm delighted to. Delightful. That's another one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm delighted to have this conversation with you, and so as I always do, I'd love to know a little more about you and how you got into what you do today.
Well, that's a great question. Thanks for that. I kind of fell into this. When I was a kid, I had a dream of someday being in radio broadcasting. But that didn't happen after high school. After high school, I went into the Air Force. And then in the early 80s, while I was stationed on Guam, I had an opportunity to get involved in radio broadcasting. Then I got involved in theater acting. Then I got involved in training and development. And that has been my career for the past 30 plus years. And that now, an offshoot of that, I work individually with people to help them craft a message that's going to stick with their audience.
Wow, what a transition. Life just doesn't work out exactly how we envision it to. We just kind of go along and have these wonderful experiences. So that led you here to what you do today and helping people with their communication. And thank goodness you do that, because communication is key. We're not mind readers. We don't have the technology yet. And I'm glad for that. So I'd like to know a little bit more about who you help and how do you help them?
That's another great question. So, because I'm doing presentation skills, I can pretty much help anybody. However, my prime target audience is teams of trainers or teams of managers or salespeople. In all of those situations, these are individuals that may be highly technical and have a difficult time taking that highly technical information and then watering it down enough so a non-technical audience can understand. So my prime audience would be technical subject matter experts that need help in understanding how to engage the audience so it could increase sales and they are memorable with their audience. And I guess you want me to continue?
Well, I mean, of course, we do
I
want you
can't
to
hear you.
continue. No, podcast is over. It's the end. No, let's not. But I'm ready to add my thoughts to that because I know that as a person who worked in analytics, it was really, really difficult for me. I remember
Mm,
the first assignment that I had, one of the big assignments that I had was to change some structure that was going to impact the entire department in some way,
mhm,
right? And we had these weekly stand-ups, and they were like, Lee, go up there and tell people how you changed the thing.
mhm.
And I was so nervous. I was so overwhelmed. There was just like 40 or 50 people there staring at me,
Right.
waiting for me as the expert to speak my expertise to let them know how it changed. And I
Mhm,
was like, "Ugh, I don't know."
mhm,
I was not clear. I was not concise. I was very, very confusing. And so
mhm,
you help experts because I know that I know the work that I do,
mhm.
just communicating it in a way that other people can understand was very, very difficult.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Well, go ahead.
go please.
So the first thing to understand about the nervousness or anxiety, this is normal. Being nervous is normal. So if you are getting up and speaking in front of a group of people and you feel nervous, don't worry about it. It's normal. The thing that needs to happen is building up those foundational speaking skills to the point where, okay, I'm nervous, but I have my foundational speaking skills in my hip pocket. They're strong, and I know how to work through that anxiety. There's lots of different ways when I work with my clients. Yes, anxiety is one of the things we work through. However, a bigger thing that we work through is having a message that's memorable, not only for the speaker, but for the audience, because there are lots of ways to work through the anxiety. And one of them is to be well prepared before you get up and speak in front of that audience. So if you were nervous, don't worry about it. You're normal.
Thank you so much. I feel so seen in this moment. And if you're listening, audience, I bet you feel seen too, because it looks like sometimes people get up on stage and they just can do it perfectly. Like they've never failed.
Well, yeah, yes, I'm sure there's some people that are more proficient than others, but I think that another thing to keep in mind, I talked about those foundational skills, but also realizing that your audience wants you to be successful. If you think about it, if you're in an auditorium and it's filled with people, there's one person on stage. Can you guess who the one person in the audience who feels that this speech is not going to go well? Who do you think that one person is? Well, in most cases, it's usually the speaker, because everybody in the audience, they want you to be successful. So there's lots of things to work through with anxiety. So foundational skills and knowing that your audience wants you to be successful.
Yeah, I want when people, just applying that to my own experience because I've attended those stand-ups and I just wanted to hear what they had to say. And
Mhm,
I wanted to be informed. I didn't want them to get flabbergasted and run off the stage kind of like what I did. It's
mhm,
just
mhm,
I wanted to hear the information because I know that they had valuable information.
mhm.
And so you help your clients with the anxiety and focusing on the piece of understanding that you have a message,
Right,
I have a message, and everybody wants to hear that message,
right, right,
right?
right.
So
Yeah,
what are
go ahead.
some of those things that you might do to help somebody who is like for me, for example, I was in that space and I came to you like I have this big presentation and they've
Mhm.
given me 3-4 weeks to work on it. I don't know what to do. How
Uh,
would you help them?
exactly. So that's a great question. So the first thing is you got to start with the end in mind. My background is creating training, and creating training is very similar, if not identical, to writing a workshop, to writing a speech, to writing a lot of things. And you got to start with the objectives. You got to start with the end in mind. It's like going on a vacation. You know the destination. So because we know that we're going to Florida during the hottest time of the year, then that tells us that what we have to pack. We also have to decide, how are we going to get to Florida? Are we going to fly? Are we going to drive? So all of these things are being worked out after we know what our destination is. It's the same thing when it comes to writing this speech that you've talked about. The first thing is understanding, what are the objectives? When I get to the end of that presentation, no matter how long it is, what are the people in the audience supposed to walk away with? How are they supposed to feel? What new information should they have in their hip pocket? That needs to be identified first.
Now, if we could zoom in just a little bit, and as we're talking about an individual talking to a large audience, so not even a large audience, maybe in a group of people, if we could zoom in and make it more interpersonal, because the same kind of fears and anxiety exist if I'm talking to my coworker. And I know that tech people out there, they're notoriously stereotyped to be the people who just can't communicate, just regular old conversations. And is that something that you can help people with?
Yes. So I would say that I fall into the bucket of being a communications expert. So I work with several things when it comes to communication. One is design. I still design training. I still design speeches, but I also deal with a process or an assessment tool called DISC. So DISC is a way for me to understand what is my unique communication style. Everybody in the world has their own unique communication style. And we all receive information uniquely. We all disseminate information uniquely. And that's something that I think is important for people to understand, that we're not all the same. This was something that I come across in training trainers to train, or even training other people to speak in front of groups of people, is having them realize that not everybody in that audience, number one, is as experienced as you in this subject. And number two, everybody in that audience is going to learn differently and to absorb information differently. So I think that one of the ways to not eliminate, but certainly reduce some of the tensions within a organization is to first understand that everybody is unique, everybody is different, and everybody brings value to the table in this organization.
Now, that's a wonderful point. Everybody is individual, everybody's unique, and the way they communicate and the way they receive communication is completely different. We have to be aware of that. So I think that this tool is really, really helpful. Disc assessment, I've heard about it, and I've actually had the assessment for myself. So it's a really great tool. You know, I also believe that you developed some of your own tools yourself. You have something called the principles of engagement and some workshops that will help people with the communication skills. Can you tell us a little bit about the principles of engagement in those workshops?
Yes. So on my website, you can download a free copy of the Principles of Engagement, which is this book right here. Now, this here comes from my years of training trainers to train. And there are 8 principles that all adults are looking for to be engaged, no matter what kind of communication is happening, one-on-one, mentoring, training, speaking, keynoting, whatever it happens to be. The adults that are in that audience, they want to be engaged. And this book here will give you those 8 principles. And I guarantee that if you apply just one of them, that it's going to increase the training within your, or increase the engagement within your training. Now, let me say this. You could throw that engagement piece out once. Yes, it could work, but it has to be continuously reinforced. And if that happens, I guarantee you will have additional engagement. So that's one thing. Go to my website, presentyourwaytosuccess.com. You'll see it pop up on the main screen. Download it for free. And the other is you'll also find on my website, I offer 3 free workshops, some every other month, some every month. But the 3 of them, the first one is creating the perfect elevator pitch. Nothing is more important for a business owner than to be able to articulate what it is you do and who you do it to in 30 or 60 seconds. So create your perfect elevator pitch. The ABCs of speaking in public is a second workshop for free. And a third one, facilitation mastery. If you are doing any sort of facilitation, training, mentoring, running meetings, or workshops, you definitely would be a great candidate to come to that workshop, the Facilitation Mastery.
That sounds wonderful. Nobody wants to be bored while they're receiving information. That's what they tried to do to us when we were in school. And we would daydream and look outside and we're like, oh man, I don't even know why I'm here. I can't wait till the school bell rings and I can get out. But now we're adults in charge of our lives and we can have presentations that are meaningful and really engaging. And we can receive information from people that are passionate about the work that they do. And so engagement is really, really the key. You want your information to be shared. And I would even say that although you talked about business owners needing that 60-second pitch or 30-second pitch,
Mm-hmm.
professionals of any kind
Yes.
need to be able to tell people what it is that they do.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially that employee that's looking for a job. What do you do? Who are you? And be able to articulate that without rambling.
Without rambling. Yeah, if you're talking to a coworker as well, and they don't even, you're from a different department, what do you do? Well, something short, something short. There you go. And so with that said, you've given us lots of amazing, loads of information, lots of free resources. Go to his website, check out presentyourwaytosuccess.com. I was going to ask you if there was one actionable step other than going to your website that you could give to someone. Take a deep breath, or what is it that they could do to start them on their journey to create better presentations, create those better interpersonal relationships?
So I'm going to leave you with three things that people will ask me, what's the number one thing that I should keep in mind when it comes to public speaking? And I have evaluated hundreds of people from a variety of different backgrounds. And these are the three things that pop up the most that gets missed. Number one, know your audience. Nothing is more frustrating than being a participant and the person that is speaking to us is talking to us as if we were experts in that field. So it's talking over your head. So know your audience. Number two, incorporate stories. Now, there are a few caveats with the story. Number one, you want to make it concise. You want to make it short. It doesn't have to have a whole lot of information in it, but it needs to be colorful enough that we can visualize and we can emotionally connect to that story. Nothing is more powerful than good crafted stories. The third is to have a compelling conclusion. So many times I've heard speakers, and I'm sure you have as well, Coach Lee, they get to the end of their presentation and it's just, okay, I'm done.
Okay,
I'm
we're
out of here.
done.
See you later. There's no wrap up. There's no conclusion. There's many pieces that are important in a presentation. Having a good opening is important, getting them right off the bat. Having a conclusion is probably a smidge more important because people are going to remember the last things that they heard.
Absolutely. Thank you for those three wonderful pieces of advice. And we can get started right away with this. Now, one more time, what is your website? What is your website? How can people reach out to you?
That's great. Yeah. presentyourwaytosuccess.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. You've got the name right there, Doerrier. Make sure you spell it right or you won't find me at all. And I'll be the only David Doerrier on there. If you find another one, let me know because it ain't me. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm always posting helpful tips. Every day I'm posting tips on public speaking facilitation.
All right. Thank you so much, David, the dynamic Doerrier. There you go.
Dashing.
Dashing. Take care. Another insightful episode of the Engaged Employee Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the deep dive into the world of employee engagement, leadership, and workplace dynamics. The Engaged Employee Podcast is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Before we wrap up, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our incredible guests and, of course, our loyal listeners. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you valuable content each week. If you found today's discussion thought-provoking and want to learn more about how we can help you or your organization make more meaningful relationships, go to patternsofpossibility.com and book a friendly conversation with me. Or you can email me your questions at patternsofpossibility@gmail.com. Stay connected with us and engage with fellow listeners by following the Patterns of Possibility on LinkedIn. You can also catch us on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to stay in the loop. And if you prefer the audio version, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your support means the world to us, and by subscribing, you'll never miss an episode. Thank you for being a part of our journey to create workplaces where passion meets productivity. Until next time, I'm Coach Lee. Stay engaged, stay inspired.